Hey everyone, Kelly Hawthorne is going to be our next speaker, and you are in for such a treat. Kelly is a registered dietitian and the director for clinical research for the Department of Pediatrics at Dell Medical School. She trains physicians, dietitians, medical students, and undergraduate students in pediatric nutrition and clinical research study design. Hawthorne's research focuses on neonatal and pediatric nutrition, including mineral absorption, intestinal failure, and human milk fortification for premature infants. She is the leader of national efforts to obtain FDA approval for intravenous omega-3 fatty acid lipid emulsions for infants and children in the United States with severe liver damage. Additionally, she was honored with the Texas Distinguished Scientist Award from the Texas Academy of Nutrition and Dietitians and is a past recipient of the Emerging Dietetic Leader Award. And she's also a recognized Young Dietitian of the Year. You guys are in for such a treat. Please join me in a virtual round of applause welcoming our next speaker, Kelly Hawthorne.
Hi, and welcome today. My name is Kelly Hawthorne. I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm the director of clinical research at the Department of Pediatrics for Dell Medical School at the University of Texas at Austin. I've been doing research in the field of neonatal and pediatric nutrition for about 20 years. My specialties have been on premature infants, but also mineral absorption, specifically calcium, zinc, and iron. So I'm very excited to talk to you today about ways that you as physician assistants can really impact the families that you serve and how you can help empower those families to tackle nutrition challenges. So hopefully I can give you some quick tips and tricks from the dietitian world to help you on that venture. And as always, we're happy to partner with you through registered dietitians everywhere. A little bit of my disclosure. I am also a speaker for Beef Lovin' Texans and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association through my work looking at iron and zinc in children. And I'm not there right now, but I might be by the time you're watching this at my cattle ranch in Hyco, Texas. It is in about an hour southwest of Fort Worth area. And so I do have strong beef connections. But actually, all of my interest in beef started mostly before these beef connections when I was looking at iron and zinc in children. So I want to talk to you first about, we're going to go through a little bit of pediatric lifespan, and we're going to focus first on this first 1,000 days. And that's a great little terminology that wraps up the time period of pregnancy and the first 2 years of life. And all that added together gives you about 1,000 days. So it's a great little hashtag, right? But this is really a great, unique period. This is a time when all foundations for optimum health, growth, and neurodevelopment are established. So this is a really, really key time period, and especially for the patients that you're seeing in this age range, this first 1,000 days, it's really, really critical. And we'll go over a little bit about that next. So for me, nutrition, of course, is a key player in the first 1,000 days. What we know for sure about the role of nutrition during this time period is that in that first 1,000 days, pregnancy and year 1 and year 2, that has impacts to improve school readiness and all their educational achievements. We know that nutrition in this time period also reduces disparities in health, education, and even earning potential. You can start to see how all of these are interconnected, right? If you're not ready for school, then you're not learning as well, then you're not going to make as good of grades, and you don't have opportunities to get into the right colleges and make a higher paying job. So you can see how that really does impact each other. We also know clearly there's a direct correlation to the risk of chronic diseases later in life. So some of the nutrients and foods that we'll be talking about today are really key to this time period. Iron and zinc, as I've mentioned before, but also water and what are healthy beverages throughout our lifespan. Human milk, definitely, we're gonna be talking about that, and starting solids and dealing with picky eaters. So I hope that we can give you a little snapshot and give you a little boost into pediatric nutrition today that will really impact your practice with your patients. So in looking at how kind of a report card for how are we doing in America And I took away a few of these building blocks that were provided by UNICEF. And you would think like, well, we're pretty well nourished in America compared to the rest of the world. We should be doing pretty good. But in fact, there's several key areas where we have gaps. So one of those gaps is a healthy and nutritious diet for mothers during pregnancy. And it might be that actually we get enough food during pregnancy, but actually nearly half of women gain an excessive amount of weight during pregnancy. So that's not a healthy and nutritious diet during pregnancy. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is a key marker, but we know from data that only about 22% of infants are exclusively breastfed up until 6 months. The right foods introduced to babies at the right times, but almost 40% of parents introduce solid foods to their babies too early. So again, that's not the most appropriate nutrition that we can be providing. A healthy and nutritious diet for babies and toddlers, but we know that 1 in 4 toddlers are not getting enough iron in their diets, which is a key nutrient for brain development. Water and healthy beverages with no added sugars for toddlers, but we know that more than half of toddlers and preschoolers consume 1 or more sugar sweetened beverage a day. And that can be anything from soft drinks to also not juice, because we're not talking about natural sugars, but added sugars. So soft drinks or juices like Hi-C and different beverages like that aren't actually 100% juice. And then finally, another gap that we know we have in America is the right knowledge and skills for parents and caregivers to properly nurse their children. But over half of moms say that they get mixed messages. I would think this is probably almost all moms get mixed messages about what to feed their kids. So we're going to talk first. Our main group that we're going to talk about is babies starting solids, and when to do it and how to do it and ways to do it and how can we do that appropriately. So I always like to look at what do the recommendations say. So when we look at the American Academy of Pediatrics, their recommendations are to introduce solid foods around 6 months of age. And they also recommend exposure to a wide variety of flavors, to different foods, different textures, to really make sure that that baby gets a broad environment when it comes to that. They also say that there's no medical advantage and no evidence that introducing solids in any particular order has any advantage. So our saying of like, oh, well, if you introduce fruits before vegetables, then your baby will have a sweet tooth forever and become obese. Simply not true. If a parent wants to introduce bananas before sweet potatoes, that's fine, because there's no medical evidence that the order of things has any advantages. They also, at the AAP, recommend that meats can be offered as an early complementary food. So complementary foods are what we're talking about, complementing the diet when we're talking about complementing breastfeeding or formula feeding. So it's really any solids that you're introducing at that time, and that meats can be introduced at 6 months. What does the rest of the world have to say about this too? The WHO and the PAHO, Pan American Health Organization, they are a little bit more strict about not just around 6 months of age, but at 6 months of age. And that's because they really have a very strong stance on breastfeeding up until 6 months age exclusively. So they don't want to introduce new solids before 6 months of age because they're really trying to promote breastfeeding on a global basis. They say that meat, poultry, fish, or eggs can be eaten daily or as often as possible. And they recognize that vegetarian diets cannot meet nutrient needs of this age unless nutrient supplements or fortified products are used. And sometimes those are not widely available throughout the world when we're looking at lower socioeconomic countries. And so for this reason, they have a strong stance on promoting foods over supplements or fortified products. Now, we'll see a few of these reality checks throughout my talk, and I'll give you a moment to think about them, but we know that 16% of infants start solids before 4 months. Now, those recommendations were around 6 months, and 16% are starting before 4 months, definitely not recommended. 38% of infants start solids between 4 to up to 6 months of age. So even still, so that's over half of infants are starting before the recommended time periods. And then some of them are starting quite late, of after 7 months of age too. So some infants may be even delayed in their starting of solids. So even though all these recommendations say 6 months, The reality is over half of children are starting solids before the recommended time period. We also know that infants who get formula, even partially fed, formula fed infants, are more likely to start solids before 4 months of age than infants who are exclusively breastfed. Okay, now I've mentioned iron a few times, and I love iron, I have to tell you, but iron is so important. And if you don't take anything else away from this talk, please remember iron equals brain power. Babies need iron to create that myelin sheath that is making those important neurotransmitter connections in their brain. Iron is brain power. And it's not like we continue making these neuroconnections for the rest of our lives at the same rate. If we don't set our babies up for the most success as possible in this first 1,000-day period, then we don't get that chance later on. So it's so important to be providing enough iron for our babies so that they really can make these neurodevelopmental growth that they need to be making during this time. Tons of studies have looked at this. It's widely known that babies who get enough iron simply have better neurophysiological and mental and motor skills outcomes later in life than babies who don't have enough iron. So that's my biggest take home for you guys today, is to remember that iron is brain power for these babies. Now, where are they going to get that iron? So if we look first at breast milk, you can see here I've got both iron and zinc, because we'll be talking about zinc throughout the talk too. So iron is listed there in the yellow bars, and you can see it's always pretty low, but by the time you get to that 6-month period, it has just it's flatlined, and there's not very much iron in milk, in breast milk. It's very bioavailable. It's a different kind of source than that what we have in iron fortified cereals and different things like that. But it does decline over time. Now, zinc declines dramatically over time. That's in the magenta bar there. And you can see over most months postpartum, it starts out pretty high. It's also still quite bioavailable, which means the body can use it very easily, but it drops off over time too. And again, by that 6-month period, you're really not getting much iron or zinc in breast milk anymore. Now, by 9 months of age, 90% of an infant's iron and zinc should be coming from complementary solid foods, because they're not going to be getting it in the breast milk anymore. Formula fed babies are a little bit different. Formula is constant throughout, so it's not changing like breast milk is. So it's going to be providing a pretty adequate source to the infant. The thing to remember though here too is by 6 months of age, a term baby's mineral stores from birth have all been depleted. They are making so many new red blood cells and growing at that dramatic rate that that's all used up by the time 6 months comes around. So developmentally, it's perfect time for us to be introducing an iron-rich source at 6 months of age. And we definitely need to have that into place by 9 months of age. I told you I was like on my soapbox for iron, but then you get it out of the way for the rest of the talk. Okay, another reality check. The AAP recommends that all full-term infants who are partially or exclusively breastfed get 1 milligram per kilogram for iron. This is the form of iron drops, liquid iron drops, starting at 4 months up until iron-rich foods are introduced on a regular basis and the baby's consuming that. So that could probably be around the 8 to even 12 months age period. How many of you think that this really happens in the real world, right? During a pandemic in particular, not for sure then. If you think about like what percentage of babies actually receive these iron drops, it's only about 5 to 10% actually get these iron drops. So they're, again, we're not following the basic recommendations by the AAP, and in order to be able to provide this important iron source to our babies at this very key time in their lives. So how else are they going to get it if not from iron drops? Well, the most common weaning food is iron fortified cereals. You've seen this all over the grocery store aisles if you've been to a grocery store lately, but you know what I'm talking about. The rice cereal in particular, that's one of our first weaning foods, typically in America. The difference is that the bioavailability of the iron in these products is lower than that of breast milk and that of infant formula. So the manufacturers, they're just not able to put in the same types of iron into these products because of rancidity, color changes, flavor changes, storage, shelf life, all those kinds of things matter. And so we can't use the same forms of iron. So what do? We also know that it's much less bioavailability. So that bioavailability from iron from fortified cereals is only about 3% compared to that of animal sources, which is more like 12 to 15%. So magnitudes higher absorption is what you're going to get. So when you're reading like a food label and you see, oh, this product, one serving of this thing has like 6 milligrams of iron, that doesn't mean that all 6 milligrams of iron are getting into the bloodstream, getting to the brain, making red blood cells, doing the things that they need to make, making those myelin sheaths. Again, if it's an iron fortified cereal, if it's any kind of plant product, that's only 3% is happening versus animal sources, which are 12 to 15%. Okay, so not all baby foods are created equally when it comes to iron. As I mentioned, there's different forms of iron, and the best that we can do right now on the market is something called electrolytic iron. And I've gone through and I found which companies use this type of iron. So these would be the ones that I would recommend parents to use. They're listed here: Gerber, Beechnut, Organics Best. So some top brands that are going to be very easily accessible in all kinds of budget affordability. Now, there's another couple of brands that are easily available out there in Target and different supermarkets. Plum Organics and Happy Family, they use a different type of iron. It's cheaper and it doesn't work as well. So you have even less bioavailability. So you're not getting the same bang for your buck as if you use a different product that's listed earlier. Now, there's some that don't have any fortification at all. And these are marketed more for, you don't have time, busy mom of a newborn at home, to make your own baby food. So just buy pre-made baby food from us. And that all sounds like a warm, fuzzy, wonderful idea. But the problem is that those don't have any additional iron added to them. So the companies called Once Upon a Farm, What's Up Baby, and Nurture Me don't have any extra iron added to them. So all of those cereals and plant sources, they're not going to get the iron that they really need from those. So this is a great way where PAs can really make a difference with families and kind of get into some of those nitty-gritty details about what are you exactly feeding your child. And there can be good, better, and best choices, and make sure that you are reaching those for your kids so that your baby has the most potential as possible. Now, when we come back to meat, we know there is so much evidence, and I could give a whole talk on how great meat would be to be providing that at 6 months of age, but I've condensed all of that into this one single slide for you and listed all of these references on here talking about the benefits of starting meat at 6 months of age. We know that they have less stunting, they have better weights, they have better head circumference, which is directly related to brain development and neurocognitive scores. They have better psychomotor development, better nutrient intakes. They have higher intakes of protein, calcium, iron, and zinc. They have less of a drop in hemoglobin that occurs naturally at 10 months. And it reinforces all of those national and international recommendations as well. So this was a lot of studies, a lot of work being done where babies were randomized to either get a pureed beef product or a rice cereal product. And these were the results. So I really can't explain as much more of like the importance of having a high quality iron food as early as 6 months of age to really impact their neurodevelopmental skills later on. Okay, so what do kids actually eat? We've talked about what they should eat and when should that start, but what are they actually eating? So there's been great studies. It's called the FIT studies, and it's in their third iteration now. The most recent one was in 2018, and it's the Feeding Infants and Toddlers study. And this is like a dietitian's dream. So please allow me to share with you what we have found over these times. So in the blue bar is 6 to 8 month olds. The red bars is 9 to 11 month olds. And green bars represent 12 to 15 month olds. And this is what are they eating on a regular daily basis, the percentage of infants eating this at least one time a day. So you can see kind of infant cereal on the left. About half of those kids start off eating that at 6 to 8 months of age. It drops off over time, as it should, as other foods increase over time. Fruits and vegetables are pretty consistent between 6 to 15 months of age. Fine, that's great. You can see here too, meat though, meat and protein groups. Only about 20% of 6 to 8 month old babies really are starting meat. So they're not getting that beef and iron and zinc sources that they need that are so bioavailable from meat and protein. They really don't start getting meat until about 9 months of age in the US. That's typically when meat is introduced. So we've gone through from so that there's a 3-month gap where we could have been introducing this great source of iron and zinc to babies when they're only getting an inferior iron source from the infant cereal, and they're getting fruits and vegetables, which are great. I will never not say that. There's great vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, all kinds of great things in fruits and vegetables, but they're really missing out on that iron and zinc that comes from the meat source. Now, look at what else they are also eating though. Dessert and those sweetened beverages, soft drinks and cookies, even 20%, the same amount of babies eating meat are also the same amount of babies that get a dessert on a daily basis at 6 months of age. And then by 1 year of age, over half of babies get a dessert or a soft drink every single day. I think this is the category where PAs can really make an impact on the overall health of that family, because we know that parents model this behavior, and that 1-year-old is not out there buying their Cokes by themselves. So how is that getting into the household? And how can we make an impact for the whole family to make better nutrition choices that will be long lasting? Okay, another reality check. The AAP recommends offering a fruit or vegetable at every meal and snack starting at 6 months of age. What percentage of kids actually have this happen? Well, we know only about 20% of 1 to 2-year-olds don't consume a fruit on a daily basis. 30% don't consume a single vegetable on a daily basis. They can go days without a vegetable. These are not our best choices. So I think this data, it's a little depressing, but at the same time, it gives us lots of opportunities to make changes and to talk to our families about how can we make better choices. Okay, moving back into that meat and protein category, and if we split that out a little bit to see what exactly is happening in that meat category, we can see baby food meat only makes up a tiny portion of that, which is understandable. Have you seen baby food meat in the grocery store? It's not all that appetizing to parents, and that's why they don't purchase it. However, it's pretty appealing to babies when you look at the studies and the acceptability of it. So that's a little bit of a barrier just to get over the parental purchasing of it, but babies will eat it just fine. So by 1 year of age, chicken is the most widely introduced product for the meat category. Now, a lot of those are also coming in the form of chicken nuggets, which, if they're breaded and fried, are not a great choice. If they are, lean and grilled, that could be a better choice. So again, just talking about choices. The thing that is the most depressing to me on this slide is the second most highest category of a 1-year-old after chicken is a hot dog. So again, I think we can make better choices with our families and just really empower them that they can do so much better than this. Okay, now I'm going to pick on some of our major food companies for a little bit. And because it's not easy in the grocery store aisle sometimes to understand what parents should be purchasing, and that some of these marketing strategies are what is driving parental choices of what to feed their children instead of what the American Academy of Pediatrics has to say. So when you look in the grocery store aisle, and I'll pick on Gerber for just a moment, they have first foods and second foods. So it makes sense. You got to feed first foods before you can get to second foods, right? But first foods don't have any meats in them at all. They're only single ingredient fruits and vegetables. Whereas you don't get meat until you get up to second foods. So this marketing is what's really driving a lot of the parental perceptions about what they should be feeding their kid. Plum Organics also doesn't have meat in their first or second stage pouches. You only get meat when you get to stage 3. Now, I picked on those two, and I'll praise Beech-Nut a little bit. They do have a stage 1 beef and broth product. And so hopefully like that again, but it's not that appealing to parents. So we have to get past that and encourage them to make their own pureed beef at home. They can do that out of ground beef. They can do that out of other beef sources, even make it out of other protein products. If you want to make ground chicken, that's fine too. Those are going to be a better source than waiting and delaying until they're 9 to 12 months of age before you even introduce that. Okay, so it may seem that your baby's favorite foods are on the top here. They're willing to try all kinds of things. They're having avocado, salmon, and zucchini, and then they become a toddler. And suddenly they're a carbohydrate addict. And they don't want a single vegetable for sure. And now they have, strong personalities, and they will tell you. Babies can tell you a little bit, but they're a little bit more accepting of, okay, well, let's try this again. Once they become a toddler, does any of this look familiar with your patients, with your families? We have a problem with picky eaters. So it can be a dramatic struggle, but I'm here to help. I have lots of tips and tricks. All of these are available through the American Academy of Pediatrics as well. So you can go back and find those there too. Okay, so research says that 20% of parents say their 2 to 5-year-olds are picky eaters. Why is this not 100%? I've never met a child that's not a picky eater almost, but that's partly my profession as well. I get all the problem kids. But it's surprising to me that it is only 20%. Kids are hardwired to like sweeter flavors, to avoid bitter flavors that might have been more poisonous out in nature. So, and because they're growing so quickly, they are hardwired to want higher calorie foods. They're hardwired for that so that they can get the energy that they need to grow. And by energy, I mean calories. We also know that 1 in 4 people are born with a gene that makes them a super taster, which sounds like a superhero until they try to eat something like Brussels sprouts or spinach or broccoli or anything with that strong bitter taste. And then they are hypersensitive to that. So it would really be a struggle for them to accept those vegetables in particular. But let's still remember that 75% of the picky eaters out there, 75% of kids don't have that gene. So they're not superheroes. Ellen Slatter has an excellent division of responsibility that is a great way for you to encourage your families. So parents and caregivers are responsible for what children are offered, when it gets on the table or wherever they're eating it, and where they eat it. It's at the table or it's in a high chair, or it's on the couch. Wherever it's offered is where the child is. That's part of the parent's responsibility. The child's responsibility, they are in charge of if they are going to eat it or not, and how much of it they're going to eat. So once you draw these lines and determine what is the parent's role and what is the child's role, the parent's role is not to determine how much that child will actually eat. It's to provide the opportunities of what they're offered and when they're offered it again, and to really help our parents to understand that they can get through this time period with successful children who are eating a wide variety of foods. So start small. Just look at it. That's all we're going to do that first time. No, you don't even get any of it. This is for me. You don't get this today. You can look at it. We'll try something else next time. Next time, you get to touch it. I'm not even going to force you to eat it. I just want you to touch it. See what it feels like. What does it feel like to you? What does that remind you of? Have questions about this. This is what, you're not supposed to be watching TV during dinner time. So what else are you going to talk about? Talk about the food on your plate. Next time, you work your way up. Just smell it. What does it smell like? What does that remind you of? Okay, you didn't like how it smelled? All right, we're done for today. Next time, lick it. So you see, I'm talking about tiny, tiny steps for foods that they may not like the first few times. a pea-sized bite the first time, then increasing the amount, increasing the frequency. But don't rush it. Build on your success. You licked it. You didn't die. Great. We're going to wait 2 weeks until we even talk about green beans again. So taking it small, taking those as wins and moving on, letting go. Okay, more family style action plans, eating together, modeling those habits. So as PAs, really encouraging these types of behaviors, encouraging your parents not to be short order cooks where you're providing a whole bunch of different things to different family members, getting kids involved as much as possible to get that meal on the table, letting the child when they're the right age to be able to pick which fruit or vegetable. Give them 2 choices. Okay, tonight we're gonna have corn or potatoes. Which one do you want to have? Okay, corn. All right, and we're also gonna have either green beans or carrots. Which one of those? Okay, green beans it is. So tonight we're having green beans and corn or whatever, using kid-friendly cookbooks. There's so many internet websites of kid-friendly cooking classes, even for older kids, but getting them involved. This past year, 2020, was the year of the home garden. So if you didn't start that already with your families, encourage your patients to start a small, even herb garden where you plant some cilantro. And now we're going to cut that up and we're going to add it into our taco that we're going to make. And so that the kids don't get freaked out over like this tiny little leaf of a green thing, because they saw it and they watered it and they planted it and they saw the sunshine, and you get them excited about it. And now we get to eat it. So getting them involved in all of the process of that, it takes time and effort. No one will disagree about that. It takes time and effort, but you are building these habits together for your family for the long haul. Okay, I'm gonna keep running through some of these. Cutting things into fun shapes. Kids like fun things, so give them fun shapes. Use fun cutters. Give them some dips. Dips don't have to be ranch dressing all the time. Dips can be ketchup. Dips can be yogurt, Greek yogurt. It's not sweet. Dips can be hummus. Kids love dipping stuff. In fact, kids might just eat more of the dipping sauce than the actual vehicle. So if that's the case, then start giving them crackers instead of carrot sticks or celery sticks, because the crackers will dissolve in the dip sauce, and then they end up having a mushy cracker that they have to eat. So, different things that you can try, different spices, combining things. Let's say they like cheese, so let's add a little cheese sauce to our broccoli. Let's say that a new apricot jam is a different texture, a different flavor to them, but they like their English muffin. Okay, so combine something that they like with something that's new and get them to eat it that way, and get them to try it. Go back to looking, touching, smelling, licking, tasting, finally, small bites, finally getting there. You can do it. Dips. My child literally licks it off of her fingers and any foods that we give. It's temporary. They're not always going to only eat the ranch dressing and never try anything else. They will grow out of all of this, but encourage, like I said, offering crackers and things like that, so that that they do get some of the vehicle that you're trying to get them to get. Crinkle cutters are great. They're super cheap on Amazon. Buy yourself a crinkle cutter. Tell your parents to buy them. Kids love it. It actually, for infants, it gives them more of a texture to hold on to for certain foods. So it's actually really developmentally appropriate. And it's just fun. You know what else is fun? Those little scoops and little spoons that you get when you go have ice cream. And you could actually buy those on Amazon too. And then these are our tasting spoons. And so we're just going to taste it. And look, it's teeny tiny. It's like minuscule. So the child knows they don't have to have like 4 or 5 big bites. They don't have to have half their plate Brussels sprouts. They're going to use this tiny little spoon, and it's fun. And then it goes in a used bowl, and then you can keep washing them and use them over and over again. Okay, pick your battles wisely. Avoid food fights. Okay, kids have tiny tummies too, and sometimes their tummies hurt. So pick your battles. Is this really the day for green beans? No, it's not. Fine. Wait. It doesn't matter. Keep going though. Try not to use food as rewards. That is so hard. I don't know any American child who has been potty trained without M&Ms. So, But then, okay, reserve the M&Ms for the potty training. Don't reserve M&Ms or whatever the reward is for, did you clean your plate? Did you finish your X, Y, and Z on your plate? Did you eat all of your sweet potatoes? Okay, now you can have this. I won't get into it now, but that sets up all kinds of disordered eating behaviors later in life. Use bridges. So let's say they like the color orange and there's something like they like oranges. Okay, so now let's get on an orange kick. Let's do everything orange that we can think of. Carrots. And then what kind of textures can we make that? We can make mashed carrots. We can make roasted carrots. We can make raw carrots, all kinds of things. Sweet potato, pumpkin pie, all kinds of different things that we can do with the color orange, or pick a flavor or pick a texture and experiment in those things and then make it fun and exciting for your child. Again, it's time and effort, but keep trying. How often does it take to accept some foods? 10 to 15 times that they will be like, nope, I totally hate squash. And then around like time number 17, they're like, all right, we can do this. It's just like anything else. And then life goes on. So keep trying, encourage your patients to be persistent. Stick to routines. Kids love routines, even if they may not seem like it at times, but allowing your child to fill up on juice, milk, or extra snacks throughout the day where they're kind of grazing might decrease their appetite at mealtime. One thing that we talk to our patients about too is milk with meals, water in between. So, and then there's not a soft drink in sight for that as well. So there's really no reason for a child to have soft drink. So milk with meals, so they're not filling up on milk, water in between. Okay, a toddler's favorite word is either no or why, right? So resist those power struggles and really talk about, the positivity that you can get to. Okay, and it might be when you normally serve these foods regularly up at top. Look at that, it's like a rainbow. That's what we would love. That's like the ideal plate. And your kid will still want everything on the bottom and they will pick at the stuff on top. But keep at it, keep being persistent. You will actually make advancing changes in their diets and you can get there. And as PAs, I really encourage you to just empower your families and encourage them to use all of those tricks and tips that we just talked about. Okay, I'm going to shift a little bit from that very young starting solids and the picky eaters from the 2 to 5 year olds into teenagers, and get into a little bit about sports nutrition, just to kind of give you just a little glance over it, and then a little bit more about obesity in our teenage years. So sports nutrition for teenage athletes, dietitians get asked about this all of the time. What can my athlete eat to improve their athletic performance? Everybody wants to know that. Even my friends and family, like, how can I have a better diet so that I can, cut off another 15 seconds off of my walk time or my run time? Or how can I eat better so that I can do whatever physical fitness activity I want to be doing and do it better? I want to beat my neighbor. I want to be better at tennis so that I can be first in the club, like whatever it is, we all kind of want these advantages. All right, so I'm going to open the door to the magic box and tell you some of the secrets. Some of it's not so much of a secret. We need calories. You cannot be an anorexic and winning marathons. Like, I know they look skinny, but they are eating tons of calories. Do you remember back when Michael Phelps was still in the Olympics and we would see those commercials about like Michael Phelps eats 10,000 calories a day because that's what he's burning off in the swimming pool. And that man is not obese, and there's so 10,000 calories. We need fuel for our performance. If we don't have enough calories, our bodies will start to break down. And not only will teenagers not be at peak athletic performance, they're still growing. So they still need calories for growth as well. This is extra important when it comes to sports where weight is emphasized. Things like dance, gymnastics for both men and women, swimming, wrestling. They are very specific about what wrestling weights boys have to be at in order to qualify for different ranks. Ice skating, all of those have extreme weight emphasis that really need to have you have to work even harder to make sure that you're promoting positive body images and positive healthy nutrition support. So supportive coaches that take that emphasis off of that weight are extremely important. Now, something that's kind of happened in our culture over the past 15, 20 years is specializing in sports. So this is intense year-round training in a single sport and excluding others. So it used to be a long time ago that kids would do all kinds of sports. Oh, it's soccer season, so we'll do soccer in soccer season. And then we shift to softball season. So now we'll do softball. And then later it's the next season, and so we'll do the next sport. Kids don't do that now. Kids get into one sport and it's softball, and they do softball year round. Even in off season, they still have trainings, and it's becoming more and more common. And there's still not a great evidence. Some degree of specialization may be needed to achieve elite levels of some sports, but less than 1% of kids actually achieve elite status. So for 99% of our children, they should not really be specializing in sports. What are the problems with that? So there's a lot of concerns about consequences and risks to specializing in a single sport. It can increase and have higher rates of injury because you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're not differentiating it up with different exercises. There's increased psychological stress and focus on body image. And more of these kids tend to quit sports entirely at a younger age. By 18 years old, 95% of tennis players had specialized, but enjoyment and satisfaction dropped off after 14 years of age. They didn't care anymore. It was only that 1%. For most sports, the experts agree that early diversification is more likely to lead to success. Success in the form of fewer injuries, success in the form of increased psychological harm, less psychological harm, better psychological outlooks on their life and enjoyment, longer participation, and increasing overall chances for success. So it's recommended to delay specialization of sports until late adolescence. It shouldn't really be happening in our 7-year-olds. Okay, one thing about, again, kind of coming back to what do I need to eat so that I can be a better athlete, or even if that is just in my own little running club of my neighborhood. Okay, so physical activity is more effective when it's paired with a protein-rich diet. And dietitians will always tell you, we want you to get your nutrients from foods instead of supplements. Even if that's in the form of like a supplement shake, oh, you're eating it, it's not a pill. Okay, well, that's just a pill that you watered down, basically, and added some vanilla flavoring to it so you could make it tolerable. Maybe you paired it with some milk, which at least the milk part is gonna give you some nutrients in the form of an actual food. So we want you to get food in the form of food, not from supplements, as much as you can. Again, beef that has absorbable iron, zinc, B12, some of the things that those nutrients do, I've already talked about. Building red blood cells, using those red blood cells to carry oxygen to cells, that's what's key when it comes to fitness and performance of an activity in an athlete. Building muscles, zinc in particular is very important for healing and recovery. And if you have a muscle strain, you need zinc to help you heal that. It's also really important with your immune system so that you don't get worn down as an athlete because you're working too hard. So zinc will also help to, I will not say boost your immune system because that is actually not what's happening at all. It's just giving you an appropriate immune response. And then, but we know all of these nutrients and B12 are important with our cognitive health as well, even as adults. There's been so many studies also looking at having protein, more protein than what most Americans get at breakfast time leads to better satiety throughout the day. And that overall is helpful to an athletic performance as well. And protein is part of a recovery snack that really helps to assist in muscle repair. So the 4 cornerstones of eating to support strength and athletic performance are: 1, anchor your plate with protein. Number 2, pair that protein with plants. I want to see some fruits and vegetables. Number 3, focus on fiber-rich, complex carbohydrates. That is not ice cream. It's not a Twinkie. That's a carbohydrate that's not going to be very nutritious. We know that that's not going to be nutritious. So focus on fiber rich carbs, whole grains, quinoa. I want to see even whole grain bread. I want to, for part of your sandwich, I want to see whole grain pasta, not regular pasta. And then 4, fuel recovery to be stronger. So by fueling our recovery, we can actually perform even better. So reaching that finish line, a typical athletic performance diet would be 45 to 65% carbohydrates, and these are calories coming from each of these nutrient categories. So 45 to 65% of your calories coming from carbohydrates, 10 to 30% of your calories coming from protein, and 25 to 35% of your calories coming from fat. Fluids are incredibly important for hydration. You need water before, during, and after an athletic event. We'll talk about specialized beverages next, but when you think hydration, think water. That's what we need. The timing of food consumptions is also important to maximize athletic performance. Meals, so our larger meal, not just a snack, but a larger quantity of food that would equal a meal, should be eaten a minimum of 3 hours before you go out to do that activity. You don't want that heavy, not even heavy, but that larger quantity of breakfast, lunch, or dinner on your stomach when you go out to do that physical activity. Snacks can be eaten about 1 to 2 hours before the activity. That's a lesser amount of food in your stomach where your body's trying to digest that food. Your body has plans of what it's going to be doing for the next few hours. And it does not include pumping your leg muscles. It includes pumping blood to your digestive system to make sure that that is happening. And then recovery foods and beverage in particular. Chocolate milk is one of the best recovery drinks that an athlete can use. It has protein, it has fluid, it has calcium, it has so many other nutrients that are needed, and it really does help repair muscles that have those slight tears that happen in regular performances, not even just a big major injury, but just those micro tears that you're doing in regular activity, which are great and fine, and that's how you're building muscle and strengthening them. But you need to recover from those. So that needs to be eaten or consumed within 30 minutes of the end of that activity, and then again another 1 to 2 hours afterwards. And that has been shown in a lot of these studies to really show what is the optimal way to recover our muscles after we have any kind of sports performance. Okay, I mentioned water, I mentioned chocolate milk. We're gonna mention a few more beverages now. I really wanna make sure that you understand and are able to share with your patients what's the difference between a sports drink on the left and an energy drink on the right. Sports drinks, think Gatorade, Powerade. There's a few more brands out there, but those are the leading brands, and that's what we're familiar with. That's a sports drink. They contain carbohydrates in the form of a sugar. This is to give you some energy again. That's to give you some calories back. Energy is what you need to pump those muscles, to run down the soccer field, to run across the tennis court. You need some of that. You need some electrolytes too, because you have sweated out some electrolytes. So you're gonna get some of that back in the form of a sports drink, Powerade and Gatorade. They're really only useful though if you have really sweat. Did you really sweat, or did you just like barely do anything? And frankly, 5-year-olds running around for a maximum of 30 minutes on a soccer field, they don't need Gatorade every time. They can use water. Gatorade is a treat, and treat it that way. Again, milk for meals, water in between. If you're not exercising more than an hour and a half, you don't even need a sports drink, because you haven't done enough to replace the carbohydrates and the electrolytes that you need from the drink in order to replace what you've lost. Okay, energy drinks, entirely different category of beverages. Energy drinks, dietitians hate this word because energy to us is calories, because that's actually the definition of a calorie, is that it is the energy required to raise a gram of food by 1 degree Celsius. So there's an actual scientific definition of what is a calorie, and it all comes back to energy. But this is a marketing term of the word energy, to be like, give you energy, to make you feel stimulated, to make you feel energized. So what does that? Caffeine. Caffeine does that. These things have caffeine in them. So think 5-hour energy drinks that you get in the 7-Eleven and the gas stations that are right there at the counter. Oh, I need a little pick me up. Let me drink a 5-hour energy drink. You're not going to want to feel the way you feel at the end of that 5 hours, I promise. Monster drink, Red Bull. These are not recommended for children. They have all kinds of levels of caffeine. Some Monster and Red Bull drinks in a 12-ounce can has the equivalent of 3 cups of coffee. What is that doing to a 12-year-old? I can tell you, it's making their heart race. It's making them not be able to concentrate in school. It's giving them the super caffeine high. So we were doing a study once, and I was doing food recalls on children. They were 9 to 12 years old, and we were looking at calcium absorption. And part of that was to see what their typical diets were, to see how much calcium they were already getting in their diets. And to do that, I need to know everything that they're eating. And so I had this one 11-year-old boy, and they told me, oh, he has 3 Red Bulls a day. He has one at breakfast before he goes to school. Then mom sends a Red Bull with him that he drinks at lunch. And then he has a third one as an after school snack when he comes home from school. This 11-year-old child was drinking the equivalent of about 10 cups of coffee a day, 2/3 of that being during school time hours. His mom is a middle school principal and didn't even know what she was actually giving to her child. She just thought, oh, it's just like a fun drink. He likes it just like he would like lemonade, or just like he would like Hi-C, or, and those aren't really great beverages either, especially if it's lemonade with a lot of sugar in it, or Coke or whatever. It's in a can, whatever. And so I actually had to work with her to wean this poor child off of it and not go cold turkey, because she was about to have her own little monster on her hands. And his grades went up. Teachers stopped complaining that he was all over the place. They thought he might have had ADHD before. It was literally Red Bull. So as PAs, please talk to your families and educate yourselves through programs like this. Educate your families so that you actually know what you're giving to children. Okay, a little bit of my soapbox there. But what an experience to have this little 11-year-old child, 3 Red Bulls a day. Not good. Okay, shifting into a slightly other topic as we wrap up, disordered eating. I just couldn't talk about nutrition in teenagers without at least mentioning this to you so that it's still on your radar. 4% of teen females and 1.5% of teen males have eating disorders. It's quite high for college transgender students. What we're talking about when we think of disordered eating is anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating. And I have the rates listed here. So fortunately, they are still quite low, but when you look at children, teenagers, college students who are at risk of developing these, that can be much, much higher. So we know that maybe only about like 1% or less of women actually develop anorexia, but over 30%, over 1/3 of Division I female athletes have attitudes and symptoms that place them at risk for anorexia. So these are things that don't just click on when someone goes off to college at 18. These are things that behavior has been building since we know now, even as young as like 7 and 8-year-old girls talking about, oh, I think I'm fat. And I have a 7-year-old niece, and she even recently, over the past year, we were having a meal somewhere, and she wanted to cut off all of the fat off of the piece of meat that we were having, because she was panicked that fat was going to get in her and make her fat. And so these are already things that 7 and 8-year-olds are hearing and internalizing. So again, I just encourage you to have open, honest discussions with all of your patients, so that we can avoid some of these things when they get older. A new growing trend I want to make you aware of is a new word called orthorexia. You may not know that word, but I bet you have heard of clean eating or pure eating. Clean eating is like a dietitian's nightmare. I can't even tell you what a pet peeve it is. There's no definition for the word clean. It gets very much tied into socioeconomic groups as well, and status. And I have the privilege to eat clean and pay for that, and you don't. This is an entirely other world that we are not able to get away from right now. This focus and hypersensitivity um, to clean and what goes in our bodies, and yet at the same time, the extreme obesity population in our country too. It's incredible to me how such things are happening at the same time in different patients. So please be aware of this. Please be aware that extreme focusing on clean eating or even natural eating, there's no definition for the word natural either, can really put people at increased risk of developing some kind of disordered eating habits. Okay, so some of those consequences, we can be familiar with, like, we know what the consequences are of anorexia and bulimia. And if you haven't heard that there are websites out there that help children disguise their eating disorders, then you need to learn about those things. So there are these websites. They're a lot of the times, what are they called? Helpful Anna websites are often telling children how to disguise your eating disorders. So really be on the lookout for that. And when it comes to bulimia or binge eating as well, oftentimes it's a dentist who picks up on it first because the vomiting erades the enamel and they have increased cavities. And so it's often a dentist who might even be picking up on this first. So, all of us health professionals can be working together to really be on the lookout for some of these warning signs and working with our families. I want to mention a little bit about boys, because I feel like most eating disorder conversations get focused around girls, which they should, because girls are more susceptible to eating disorder. But unfortunately, our boys are becoming as susceptible as our girls. For them, it's a little bit different. It's not so much on the I want to be skinny side, it's the I want to bulk up side. And they're even calling it in the literature, especially the psychological literature, the superhero effect. They want to be big and strong like all those superheroes, and it's really giving them a body dysmorphic situation. So it's important for us to recognize this. Different studies have found that 2/3 of middle school and high school boys reported using protein powders to gain muscle, to bulk up, to be a real man. 6% of those admitted to using steroids. That's like, they don't even understand what they're doing to their bodies, because the steroids are actually going to hinder their growth, hinder their height gain, and give them stunting. So it's just more things that I can pass along to you quickly so that you can just have them on your radar. And when you see some of these signs and symptoms, really be cognizant to point them out, talk to your families, talk to those parents, and get to a deeper level. Make referrals as you need to, as things are outside of what your expertise is. Then refer to a registered dietitian, refer to another healthcare expert, to a psychologist, to a team of medical professionals to help children in these areas. Open communication, all of these things that I've already been talking about. It really all comes down to the family again. Promoting healthy body images, talking about how ads and Facebook and Instagram and everything is so photoshopped and filtered these days, and it's not real. And so it's okay that what they see in a mirror doesn't have a filter on it. And set a good example to try to model that healthy behavior. Another reality check as we kind of close out talking about teenagers is, what's the percent chance that a child who is obese as a child, as a 10 to 13-year-old, becomes an obese adult? It's 80% chance of becoming an obese adult if you're an obese child. So it gives us even more opportunities to make impacts in a child's health and giving them a healthy weight so that they don't become an obese adult later on too. And we know we're right around that 20%, that 20% of our children are obese in America. This comes from lower income families. We know that parents who are obese are, as adults, they're likely to have children who are also obese, and all kinds of risks. We have renamed type 2 diabetes that we used to refer to. We had juvenile diabetes and adult onset diabetes back in the day. We don't call it adult onset anymore because it's onset in childhood. It's just that it's type 2 diabetes. So they also have high blood pressure, breathing problems. Some of them even need to be on apnea machines as a child, trouble sleeping. And how fun is that to take your apnea machine over to a sleepover? Like, that's not fun for a child. So there's all kinds of depression, anxiety, psychological impacts that this child is having. So making healthy choices to decrease these risks are very important to the healthcare team. Tackling obesity, it is so multifactorial. You have to get the parents on board with you. This is not something that a 10-year-old can do by themselves. Getting parents to be role models, to be like, you know what, I'd like McDonald's too today, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go through, or we're going to go to McDonald's because that's what's convenient for us today. And I don't have time to cook, but we're both going to get the salads and we're both going to enjoy that. And it smells like French fries. And I miss French fries too, but we're both going to get the salads today. Oh, it's tough. It takes time and energy and effort, but it is so worth it. Be a coach, not a sheriff, especially with older teenagers. That's really important, just to be supportive and share your struggles. Encouraging physical activity. Let's just get out and walk together as a family. Get bikes and let's ride together. You can get bikes, even donated bikes. So low income families can have affordable situations. Having healthy snacks on hand. Are we going to have chips on hand, or are we going to have raw vegetables in the fridge to grab? Like, and it takes a while. Yeah, they have a salt addiction too, and that carrot just may not do it. Okay, well, let's try some hummus and some everything but the bagel seasoning that has a little salt in that, has a little garlic. We're getting our seasonings and stuff instead of from chips and French fries. Drinking more water. Like I said, some of this, we know what to do. We just have to really encourage our families to do that. Empowering families. As PAs, you are strategically positioned to help these families with their nutritional goals. All kinds of nutritional goals, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, healthier eating, picky eating, starting solids. You're seeing these families at all these different time points and can really make impactful changes. You can partner with the families, partner with registered dietitians, partner with all kinds of other healthcare professionals to tackle complex nutritional challenges. So I know I've said a lot of things that seems like a lot of, I've said, in fact, time and effort. It's not easy. Some of the things are simple, but simple does not always mean easy. So I have a slide to leave you with here. This is a picture of my Uncle Bob out at our cattle ranch, and that barn was on our property before we even purchased it. That barn is over 100 years old. And I love this picture of my uncle in his overalls because this quote by Thomas Edison, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. And a lot of this can be work, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you as a PA to have an impact on this family, on this child's life that is long lasting for the rest of their lives. So I really encourage you to think of all those time and energy things, all those efforts as opportunities. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope I have inspired you to be a little bit more excited about nutrition. Iron equals brain power, and no kid needs an energy drink, especially Red Bull 3 times a day. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I think we'll close out today. I'm not sure how they're handling questions and answers, but I'm happy to provide my email. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to get back with you. Thank you so much for your time again. My name is Kelly Hawthorne, and y'all have a great 2021.